It was a quiet evening at Mar-a-Lago when a select group of high-ranking advisors, economists, and former military officials were escorted into a private conference room. Donald Trump, dressed in a navy blue suit with his signature red tie, sat at the head of the table, his hands clasped. "Gentlemen," he said, scanning the room, "we're about to embark on the most ambitious project in modern history." The attendees leaned in. When Trump called a special strategy meeting, it usually meant something big. But this time, the atmosphere felt even more intense. A large screen lit up behind him, displaying a satellite image of Greenland. "We should have gotten this in 2019, Trump said, shaking his head. "But Denmark didn't have the vision. They thought I was joking. Believe me, I wasn't." Some chuckled. Others stayed silent. "This time, it's different. This time, we're not just asking. We're making an offer they can't refuse." The room buzzed with curiosity. How did he plan to pull it off? Trump tapped his fingers on the desk, letting the suspense build. "This isn't just about buying Greenland," he continued. "It's about transforming it into something the world has never seen before." A new slide flashed on the screen. Project New Frontier. It outlined plans for turning Greenland into a hub for natural resources, energy independence, and a military stronghold. We're talking oil reserves, the rarest minerals, and strategic positioning. China wants this place. Russia wants this place. But we take it first. One of his economic advisors nodded. "Sir, Greenland has massive untapped resources. If we secure them—" "Exactly," Trump interrupted. "And imagine this. Trump City in Greenland." Murmurs filled the room. The idea was outrageous, yet somehow entirely within Trump's style. "But sir, Denmark already rejected selling Greenland," an aide pointed out. Trump grinned. "They rejected my offer. This time they won't." The private jet carrying Trump's top negotiators touched down in Copenhagen under the cover of secrecy. The world didn't know yet, but history was about to be rewritten. Inside the Danish Prime Minister's office, tension filled the air. Mette Frederiksen, Denmark's leader, sat across from the American delegation, her expression unreadable. She had dismissed Trump's idea of purchasing Greenland years ago. Why were they back? "We appreciate the meeting, Madam Prime Minister," Trump's lead negotiator began, placing a thick folder on the polished wooden table. "We believe this time we have an offer Denmark will not just consider, but fully embrace." Frederiksen exchanged glances with her advisors before cautiously opening the file. Inside were classified reports detailing Greenland's untapped economic potential. Massive rare earth minerals, oil reserves, and a strategic Arctic trade route. It wasn't just real estate. It was a global economic powerhouse waiting to be unlocked. "We understand your position in 2019, the negotiator continued, but times have changed. The U.S. is prepared to make Greenland the single largest economic project in Denmark's history. We're talking about an investment that would rival the Marshall Plan." The Danish officials whispered among themselves. Billions of dollars in infrastructure, energy, and defense investments were on the table. Airports, ports, technology hubs. A complete modernization of Greenland. But Frederiksen remained skeptical. "This isn't just about money," she said, her voice firm. "Greenland is part of our national identity. Selling it isn't an option." Trump's negotiator leaned forward. "Then think of it this way. This isn't a sale. It's a strategic partnership. Denmark retains influence, but Greenland reaches its full potential. And if you reject this deal, China and Russia are waiting to step in. Do you really want that?" A heavy silence filled the room. Frederiksen exhaled slowly, realizing that this was bigger than she had ever imagined. While negotiations continued in Denmark, the Pentagon had already moved ahead with its own strategy. Trump knew that securing Greenland wasn't just about resources, it was about global power and military dominance. And he wasn't going to wait for politicians to make up their minds. At Thule Air Base, the U.S. military's northernmost installation in Greenland, top generals and intelligence officers gathered in a high-security briefing. A massive digital map of the Arctic region flickered on the screen. "We're looking at the single most strategic location in the world," a four-star general began. "If we control Greenland, we control Arctic defense. That means missile defense systems, satellite tracking stations, and even nuclear deterrence. This isn't just a land grab. This is the future of global security." One of Trump's closest advisors sat in the back, nodding as he took notes. This was the real reason behind the deal. Resources and business opportunities were the cover story, but the true objective was military supremacy in the Arctic. We've already increased our presence at Thule, the general continued. If negotiations fail, we have contingency plans to expand our operations under the banner of joint defense training. But if Trump secures Greenland through diplomacy, we don't just expand, we own the Arctic. A Pentagon official cleared his throat. And what about Denmark? If they realize what's happening, won't they push back? That's why the deal is structured as a partnership, the general said. Denmark keeps symbolic oversight, but the U.S. runs the show. They get economic benefits, we get strategic control. Trump was already aware of this. In private meetings, he had referred to Greenland as the ultimate power move. And soon the world would find out just how serious he was. It started as a rumor. A leak from an unnamed source in the Danish government suggested that Denmark was reconsidering Trump's Greenland offer. The world erupted in chaos. CNN called it 21st century imperialism. The EU condemned it as a dangerous shift in global politics. Russia and China both issued strong warnings, calling it a direct challenge to their Arctic ambitions. But in Washington, Trump was celebrating. At a packed rally in Florida, he walked onto the stage with his classic grin. The crowd chanted his name. He leaned into the microphone and smirked. "They told me it couldn't be done," he said, shaking his head. "They laughed when I said I wanted Greenland. But folks, who's laughing now?" The audience roared with applause. "Greenland is going to be the best deal in history," Trump continued. "We're going to make it great. We're going to make it powerful. And we're going to make a lot of people very jealous." Within hours, headlines exploded. Denmark reportedly considering Trump's Greenland offer. White House confirms strategic talks with Copenhagen. China and Russia respond furiously to U.S. Greenland plans. In Copenhagen, the Danish parliament was in a state of crisis. Some politicians demanded a rejection of the deal. Others saw the massive economic benefits and urged negotiation. Behind closed doors, Frederiksen received a final call from Washington. "This is bigger than Denmark," Trump's advisor told her. "This is about shaping the world order. Make the right choice." The Danish prime minister took a deep breath. She knew what this decision would mean. Finally, after a long pause, she responded. "I'll take it to Parliament," she said. Trump had done the impossible. Greenland was no longer just an idea. It was becoming a reality. The world watched in stunned silence as Denmark's government prepared to vote on the most controversial geopolitical deal in modern history. For decades, Greenland had been a remote, icy landmass with strategic importance. But now, it was the center of a global power struggle. Outside Christiansborg Palace, where the Danish parliament was set to meet, protesters flooded the streets. Some waved Danish flags, chanting, "Greenland is not for sale." Others, mostly economists and business leaders, argued that the deal could bring an unprecedented economic boom to Denmark. Inside the parliamentary chambers, Mette Frederiksen sat at the head of the table, visibly exhausted. She had spent the last 72 hours in back-to-back negotiations with U.S. officials, EU leaders, and even NATO representatives. "The world is watching," she said, addressing her government. "This is not just about Greenland. This is about Denmark's future, our alliances, and our role on the global stage." Then came the final proposal from Washington. Denmark would retain cultural oversight over Greenland. The U.S. would invest $50 billion into infrastructure, energy, and military expansion. Greenland would become a U.S. territory with special economic privileges. Denmark would receive a permanent security agreement with the U.S. It was not a simple sale. It was a strategic alliance, carefully crafted to be too good to refuse. As the debate raged on, a historic moment arrived. The Danish parliament narrowly voted in favor of opening final negotiations with the U.S. The chamber erupted in chaos. Opposition leaders slammed their fists on the table, while pro-business politicians celebrated the economic breakthrough. Breaking news. Denmark approves negotiations for Greenland deal. The world exploded. China condemned the move, calling it a direct provocation. Russia declared the Arctic a new Cold War battleground. European leaders warned that the balance of power was shifting permanently. Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump couldn't have been happier. At a press conference, standing in front of a massive American flag, he grinned. "I told you we'd do it," he said. "Greenland is going to be tremendous. We're going to build, we're going to invest, and we're going to make it a key part of the greatest country in the world, the United States of America." A reporter shouted, "Well, Mr. Trump, what do you say to critics calling this an act of modern imperialism?" Trump smirked. "I say they're jealous." The room burst into laughter. But as celebrations took place in Washington, a new concern emerged. Would this deal actually hold? Or would global tensions make it collapse before it became official? The world had changed overnight, and Greenland was now at the center of history.